Hey, it's Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for May 2023. So on May 5th, May 6th for some people in the world, depending on where it is that you're at, we are going to have our full moon lunar eclipse taking place in Scorpio energy. So we have a lot to unpack here, so let's dive into it. First of all, it's a full moon. So there's an ending, there's a closure, there's a releasing, there's a purging point. What are we letting go of? What are we closing the door on? What is it that we're actually purging? Well, the deep-seated, dark type of narratives and emotions and pain and trauma that is highly ingrained in our unconscious selves. How do we know that? Well, Scorpio energy, it's a water sign. It is the alchemist, the detective of the zodiac, where we do a deep dive in the shadow realm of our experiences in order to unearth some deep psychological blocks, challenges, narratives. This is essentially examining why it is that we do what we do, why we think the way we think, why we act the way we act, why we feel the way we feel. And we have to unearth a lot of the darker emotions, a lot of the darker memories. We have to examine deep within the psyche where it is that those primary root caused obstacles got written into our programming. We have to feel what it is that we are being asked to heal, let it rise to the surface, have a boiling over point, have a little bit of an emotional eruption in order to release, in order to purge, in order to lighten the emotional load. So this is taking place at 14 degrees, almost 15 degrees, which is the halfway point in the Scorpio energy, which means that we should be learning about balance right now. We should be able to do a deep dive in that darkness, not sit there, instead find our way back to the surface, bring those issues to light, really apply the wisdom and knowledge that we have to apply it, show it the information, a different perspective, and then of course, let it go. And that's what the whole point of, these moon energies are. The shadow work is, not to mention that it is a lunar eclipse, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But it's also important to note that we are building towards this peak boiling over point, this releasing, purging, or I could have made a new word out of that, but releasing and purging point. And it will be at its peak energy at 1:34 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we are being triggered and activated in all kinds of different ways. There are multiple storylines in which this is the straw that broke the camel's back in order for us to really, really unearth a lot of the not so nice emotions. We need to bring them to the surface. We need to acknowledge it, integrate it. We need to let it go. So the lunar eclipse is what we need to talk about. First of all, a lunar eclipse removes something out of our lives, subtracts something out of our lives. So this whole purge, this whole releasing point, this whole ending and closure point is being even more intensified by the lunar eclipse energies. Now, we've been in this eclipse window since, the new moon solar eclipse in Aries energy that took place just 3 hours prior to the sun moving into Taurus season. Taurus season, Scorpio energy, they sit across from each other in the zodiac wheel. And of course, that new moon solar eclipse in Aries that we had was just scratching the surface on the 18-month spiritual life lessons that we are going to be moving into in July when the true nodes of the moon move out of this Taurus and Scorpio axis and move into the Aries and Libran axis. If you're interested on understanding more about the eclipses, I have a whole eclipse lunar node type of video here on What the Thack playlist here on YouTube. And of course, if you're a Patreon, we just did a whole lot of digging here in some of these astro classes, doing a deep dive in what this Taurus and Scorpio life lesson is, and of course the lessons that we were meant to learn and what it is that we'll be moving into when the Aries and Libran axis kicks off. So let's talk about the fact that this particular lunar eclipse in Scorpio is the final hurrah for this Scorpio energy. This closes the door on the last 19 years and it opens the door for the next 19 years because, of course, we won't have the eclipse energy in this Taurus and Scorpio axis for another 19 years. That's how long it takes for the true nodes of the moon to go through all the signs. But this also dates back for this particular sequence and series to November of 2021. That's when we first jumped into this Taurus and Scorpio axis. And this is a reverberatory lesson from 2003, 2004, that particular timeline as well. That's where these energies are kind of connecting and painting a bigger picture on this major transformation of self and circumstance that we are currently going through. So let's talk about the topics and themes of this Taurus versus Scorpio axis. First of all, Taurus is a fixed earth sign ruling over our physical realms, over material realms, over possessions, value, worth. It is about creation. It is about birth. It's about what it is that we want to bring to life here in this physical, materialistic form. While the Scorpio energy is a fixed water sign, so we're talking about emotions, intuition, and spirituality. It's where destruction, death, releasing point is concerned. It is where major transformation takes place. We have to make that transformation, that change within ourselves, doing the deep shadow work in order to remove those lower vibrational emotions, thoughts, memories from our existence in order to have the space to create something new in its place. Taurus energy. So while we like to keep it basic and simple in Taurus energy, we move into the mysterious and complexities of our psychological disposition in Scorpio energy. That's why it's so intense. That's why it's so deep. That's why it's so dark. That's why it's so transformative. And that's why people are scared as F of Scorpio energy and scared of F as doing the shadow work, because you really have to move really deep within yourself, get real and raw and vulnerable with what it is that you've been holding on to that has essentially created toxic behaviors, patterns, responses within you. This is about being bold and brave and courageous enough to do a deep dive to unearth these particular primary root causes, to make a change in the frequency and vibration of who it is that you currently are in order to free up the space to build something new in its place. Again, Taurus energy. So there is this kind of balancing act that we need to be doing in order to kind of recognize where it is that we've been too fixated with holding on to our pain, our trauma, and where it is that holding on to those things are creating blockages here in the physical realm, preventing us from manifesting a new circumstance for ourselves. If you have a problem with manifesting, you need to understand that you're not doing the shadow work that is needed in order to rewrite, override, rescript all of those egoic programmings that you have been learning since your existence actually got initiated here in this physical realm. That's why we're going through an unlearning process right now, because we were not taught reality. We were taught indoctrination on a false narrative that has created some major energy blockages in our emotions, in our spirituality, which the Scorpio energy needs us to do a deep dive in order to kind of bring up all the falsities. We have to really examine what it is that we need to change within ourselves in order to see those mirrored effects in this Taurus energy, in our physical circumstances. Where Scorpio energy totally destroys something, the Taurus energy is there to create something better in its place. Where the Scorpio energy brings certain aspects to a certain death, the Taurus energy is there ready to give birth to something new. Where the Scorpio energy is here to totally transform our inner emotional and spiritual realm, the Taurus energy is there to create something physical, something new in the form of our physical circumstances that we now free up because of the lower vibrations and frequencies of the emotions, the memories, the thoughts and perspectives that we were holding on to, no longer blocking our ability to manifest a physical realm, a physical circumstance that not only look good, but feels just as good as well. So we got a lot going on. And if you have any particular placements at a 10 to 20 degree in any fixed sign, this is definitely going to kind of give you a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, more so than other placements. We have a lot of things to consider here. If you downloaded your moon guide, which I hope you would have done at this particular point in time, especially with these eclipse events, if you don't do any other moon or shadow work throughout the whole calendar and you just focus on the eclipse energy, I would highly recommend that you kind of boss up and you do the work and you download that moon guide. But in that moon guide, you're going to kind of look at the elemental energy profile and realize that yet again, we're experiencing another very karmic event where there is equal distribution of earth and water. And earth and water not only cleanses the slate in order for something new to grow, but it essentially is the platform where new growth and transformation and change takes place. So we have a lot of very important markers, especially under this eclipse event, that would suggest that, you know, we're in some very, very karmic time here. Not to mention that Pluto rules over this particular Scorpio energy, and of course he just went retrograde, joining Mercury, ruler of the mental plane, who is also retrograde, and both Mercury and Pluto kind of examine both the lower level and higher levels of our intellect, of our psyche, and therefore both in a retrograde, this is an internalized situation where we have to move inward and really kind of pick apart our ways of thinking, our perception, our perspective, our understanding, and really kind of jumble some things up, move some things around so that we can see where the stagnancy has created blockages and obstacles within our emotional and spiritual selves. Even more than that, we look at the fact that we're in Taurus season, ruled over by Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, money, who is the feminine divine energy that we all have within us, versus the Mars energy, because Mars co-rules over the Scorpio energy with Pluto. Mars is the masculine, and Mars is in Cancer energy right now, a sister water sign to Scorpio, while Venus is in Gemini energy, which is an air sign. And if you listen to the May energy forecast, you would know that we're in a vibration of 5, which is the heart chakra, and we are attempting right now to go through a recalibration and a realignment, which is what eclipse and retrograde season is all about. And therefore, we're having a lot of heart activations, a lot of changes going on in our heart space in order to get our heart and head in alignment, because of course we know we need those two things to be in agreement before we can engage the physical body and actually take action in our physical realms to rearrange, reorganize, restructure all of those retrograde words in order to kind of create a new platform, a new foundation, a new set of circumstances for us to build upon as we move out of eclipse season, kind of get situated in our new realities, and of course prepare for the last and final hurrah of this Taurus and Scorpio axis, which of course will take place in the fall of 2023 with a Taurus eclipse event. This is the last one for the Scorpio energy though. So we definitely got a lot going on. In the moon guide, you're going to go through and kind of see all of the positive aspects, the harmonious aspects that are really encouraging change and transformation, while also examining the con list, which of course isn't bad. It's just creating a little bit of conflict, a little bit of tension in our lives in order for us to kind of unearth the not so nice spots of emotion and thoughts within us. And of course, we need to kind of allow that to rise to the surface, to bubble over. And that con list, creating tension and conflict, is meant to show us what it is that we are resisting as far as change goes. So I would definitely encourage you to kind of jump in to that particular moon guide. And if you're not into the moon guides, at least download your Taurus season e-guide, which of course has its own little chapter on what this eclipse is all about. It is very important that you are aware of yourself, of your surroundings, of what's going on right now, that you are acting as the observer. And again, it is likely not even going to be until the first week of June that we start seeing our realities in the way that we need to see them after this eclipse and retrograde season actually comes to a close. We will not even begin to understand the karmic events that have been initiated and in some case closed altogether until we kind of clear this eclipse season, clear this retrograde energy, and actually get back to normal energy programming. So with all that being said, you really have to keep yourself in a conscious state of awareness as we build towards this very, very potent releasing point. Pay attention to all your triggers, all your activations, do the deep dive, do the work within yourself, see where the primary root cause of some of these not so nice thoughts and feelings actually stem from, and do your damnedest to overwrite that script, to clear yourself from these vibrations and frequencies and give yourself a beautiful, clean slate to actually begin to build upon as we close the door on this eclipse chapter as we near through the month of May. Of course, this just another reminder. I feel like I'm repeating myself, and I do apologize for that, but this full moon doesn't just close the door on eclipse season. We actually have to wait until the new moon in Taurus on May 19th in order for eclipse season to totally come to a close. However, this is a very climactic point in this eclipse energy, and we should start, kind of seeing these wild card energies dissipate, calm down just a tad as we get over this particular marker and we build towards that new moon in Taurus, which of course closes the door on this whole eclipse energy altogether. So I just hope that you're paying attention. I hope that you're being real and raw and vulnerable with yourself. I hope you are kind to yourself as you go through this emotional breakdown and you prepare for this new emotional breakthrough.